We thought we would all get together and talk about Jerry and remember him, and we decided to tape it so we could send it to Lisa and his girl. So let's keep it PG-13. That's standpoint. Jerry was one of my best friends in college. And let me get this out of the way early. He was also so bad at keeping in touch after college, a source of great irritation to me. So much so that when he got sick, I told him that his cancer was probably correlated with his being so bad at keeping in touch, which we had a good laugh about. He took it well. And we had a lot of good laughs over the years. I think about Jerry, he was the perfect college friend. He was always up for a fun time. He loved a good laugh. He was adventurous some moments, serious the next. And while he always struck me as one of the less hardworking students on campus, somehow he did manage to end up at Harvard Law School. We shared a lot of references and shared experiences, whether it was sports, Bruce Springsteen, our Jewish families, the way our Jewish relatives pronounced certain words, certain phrases that we both responded to. I remember when Jerry once said, Jerry Nywood on saxophone, which is an Art Garfunkel line from Concert in the Park, which I knew. That was my line, Jerry Nywood on saxophone, and Jerry and I share that among many things.
You seem to have filled the place.
I'm so in the mood.
How many of us were there?
Okay. When I think of Jerry, it's here on the Yale campus. He's a little pudgy. He's got that 80s Jew fro. He's wearing a blue sweater and a nice watch. And as I wrote this, I thought, that's a weirdly specific memory. I must have a photo of him with a blue sweater and a nice watch. So I went to my photo albums, and certainly enough, there's a picture of me and Jerry and Lynn and Debbie Klosky. That's the spring break of our senior year. We're driving down to Florida. We stayed with Jerry's grandmother, and then we stayed with Lynn's grandmother. And I was, what's that?
I said sophomore year.
Sophomore year, what'd I say?
Senior.
Sophomore year. Sophomore year, we'll edit that. And then I got really weirded out because the person with the blue sweater and the nice watch was me.
Did you have the big hair?
Yes,
yeah, also. Yes, also.
If you'll hold, that was my joke.
Okay. Standing in for Jerry.
I didn't have the Jew fro then. I don't have the Jew fro now. But I saw some amazing photos of Jerry through his college years that many of you are in that I will pass along. I started looking at the pictures with Jerry, and it was our bright college years in a nutshell. Singing at Maury's, Jerry and Dano peeking out from the Yale Bowl press box, tailgating before the game, a group photo in our Branford living room with 11 Branfordites, Lynn, Jerry, and Alderman Ratner. Choose Joel. I believe that was 80.
He had a great campaign.
86? That was a damn good campaign. Drinking a cup at Maury's or eating a sandwich. Speaking of sandwiches, Jerry loved to eat. We talked about food a lot. And as a quick aside, the appetizers and food stations at Jerry and Lisa's wedding were absolutely best in class. Does anybody remember the food stations at Jerry's wedding?
Yes.
Besides food, we talked about everything, usually late into the evening or going off to Wawa's for a late turkey sub. Mostly funny and silly conversations, but there was always the serious stuff with Jerry because of his mother's MS, because of his Hodgkin's, because we had some tragedies along the way, like losing Peter Barry, because we were unlucky enough as college students to have Ronald Reagan as our president. What could be more boring as a college student to have Ronald Reagan as our president?
Anno Schmidt.
We'll edit that out for the website. The other thing about Jerry's college years is that for the most part, we were all generalists, exploring everything college had to offer. None of the hyper-specialization of today's youth. Jerry and I wrote college sports for the Yale Daily News, as did Dano. And the two of them stuck with it and became sports editors. Where is Dano?
He's on his way.
Is he?
Yeah.
I thought he was coming. He was coming too.
People focus. He was sports editor, which was practically a full-time job. He starred in a theatrical drama at Silliman. Anybody remember the name of that show? My.
Something about it.
In fact, 2 decades later, I bumped into an alum from the class of '88. I think his name is Colin Weil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I said, "You played Jerry Sorkin's brother in a play at Silliman," and it completely freaked him out. Jerry and Stu and I started Teleflix. Stu, the lost partner. We spent our afternoons carrying heavy televisions and VCRs to dorm rooms, and we like to believe we were the predecessor to all sorts of fabulous companies, but all we did was schlep heavy equipment to dorm rooms. Jerry and I were terrible golfers who loved golfing together. We loved singing even though we were terrible singers. We went on road trips and visited each other's families. That's the Jerry I remember and love, someone bursting with joy and adventure, and he's fearless, and he loves to have a good time, and he sings Springsteen, and he enjoys gambling. And it sucks he's not here with us today. So this should just be a free-flowing memories, reminiscences, anything that comes to mind. It's a safe space.
Safe space. So I will say a few things, although I didn't write them down, and I'll try to keep it short. And I'll also try, as I think you guys all know, Jerry was a very close friend of mine, and then my boyfriend for a number of years after, during junior and senior year, and then a couple of years into law school. And he was all that that David said, and I remember a lot of these things, very well. I will also say he was he was a really complicated, complicated, interesting, really smart guy. And there was a period, this is all a little jumbled, but thinking about this, there was a period, I think it was beginning of sophomore year, but it might have been the end of freshman year. It was where he was, depressed, and that kind of like, what am I doing? Am I in the right place? Am I in the wrong place? I should have gone to Michigan. I mean, I very explicitly remember him saying, I should have gone to Michigan with my friends and actually with his, wife, and I should have joined Sammy, and it would have been like, what am I doing here? And obviously he got through that because, Yale ended up being incredibly important to him, and you all were there, and for that, and then he worked on the news, and he did, well in school, and but then he also, got sick, like while we were here, and I wish I remember what year it was. I don't really remember whether it was sophomore, junior, or even senior year, but I do remember that he was periodically going to Yale New Haven for his chemo during school. He'd be there, all day or maybe overnight. It was really draining. And yet he didn't drop out of school for that semester. He went through it. He did all of his other stuff. His famed Jufro, as you said, straightened out. And a lot of people for like the next year would come up and ask him if he had a perm. Like they had he was really pretty quiet about the other stuff that he was going through with the Hodgkins.
Actually, in the pictures, you can sort of see before and after chemo with Jerry's hairstyle.
Yeah, it is a, and it was really, so he was so, I mean, for me, and I have a lot of memories actually of my screaming at him. So, and this is, by the way, before we were dating. This is just, freshman, sophomore year, yelling about something, but then continuing on. There was a time when, at the beginning of senior year, when I was fortunate enough to get a new car, brand new car, loved this car, drove it to the game, or a game, a football game, and Jerry, took the car and drove it up the hill on the parking, whatever. He was just, fooling around with it, and I was so pissed off. I mean, I have somewhere, I have pictures of that day, prior to my screaming, but it was just like, this is my car, I don't know. But he was certainly capable of creating strong motion, and then I think some of you here are in manuscript. He was in manuscript senior year, which I think he quite enjoyed it, for what it's worth. But I was going somewhere with this. Strong emotion. But that I don't know what it was. But what I will say is that what I really miss, and Jerry and I did not keep up after we broke up. We did really didn't, other than at some point becoming Facebook friends. But I still, and for many years, there were things and at reunions where he would really be the person I would most want to get their take on something, you know, like on something that one of our friends had done or had said or had, you know, that because he was so much a part of my college experience that we really went through, you know, the 4 years so closely that I really miss being able to say, you know, like one of my freshman year roommates went from being like the epitome of blue blood New England to becoming an Orthodox Jew. And like, I really, really wanted to have his view on this, you know? There was no one else that I could possibly, who would possibly get the level of craziness that kind of involved. Maybe, you know, not craziness, I don't take that back. But the level of like personal change that must have involved. And it is he was really a really, really wonderful, wonderful guy and a really great guy. And I'm trying to keep this PG, so I won't say that my remembrance of Teleflix is that it was a lot of pornography that you guys were schlepping around. And, you know,
when you started a new organization, you had to do a survey. We had to get 100 surveys filled out. So it was like, do you feel you could use this in your life? You know, what kind of films would you work on? And so then we were interviewed by the dean, and the dean was like, it seems like there's a lot of interest in pornography. We would not be at all involved in such.
It's a little different. No, we actually had a debate about this. Because we had a debate because you thought nobody was going to be interested in it. Jerry thought I was sure people were interested in it, and so was Jerry. But Jerry thought we won't provide. And I was like, listen, whatever the customer wants.
The marketplace of ideas.
Marketplace of ideas, exactly.
And then it became a First Amendment.
Funny. I mean, I'll just say that I miss him still. Certainly, he was so much a part of my Yale experience, and all, and obviously good friends to all of us. And Lisa and his daughters. Your father was really a really wonderful man. So it's really a shame.
Okay, I'm going to jump in, and I have a slightly different perspective because I really didn't get to know Jerry that well until senior year of Yale. I didn't, he was a friend of a friend. He was a friend of Dano's and Tim's. And I think I knew David better than I knew Jerry. And as a matter of fact, I was wondering whether there'd even be a picture of me. But there's a picture of me, which I think David probably found just to humor me, because I don't think I have very many pictures of Jerry from Yale. But fortunately, we got to be good friends senior year, and we both got into Harvard Law School, and we both decided to defer. And Jerry and I and James who barely knew Jerry at all, I think at the time, decided to room together, and we lived together for 3 years at Harvard, and it was really the beginning of a really wonderful relationship. I mean, he was someone who, although really most of the 25 years since law school we lived on opposite coasts, and I didn't see him all the time, but I always had a special attachment and a real bond for Jerry. I mean, I was at his wedding, he was a groomsman. In my wedding, I went to Emma's bar mitzvah. I remember a memorable trip that we took a couple years after law school. Jerry and I and one of his friends, not a Yaley, went on a river rafting trip in Idaho on the Salmon River in Idaho, which I know sounds very uncharacteristic for Jerry because he was not exactly an outdoorsy guy. But I remember I was actually kind of curious as to why Jerry had selected this sort of idea, and I realized along the way that in order to get to the Salmon River in Idaho, I think it was Reno, we had to stop at a casino on the border. And I remember specifically it was called the Winnemucca Casino. I think it was a Winnemucca brand of Indians, or tribe of Indians. And I think it was like the first time I had played craps, and this was with someone, I'm trying to remember his name, I won't remember, Steve Berman. But anyway, Jerry was, of course, a master gambler. I mean, he loved to gamble more than anything else. If anyone saw Gary's speech at his funeral, he talked about that. And so Jerry loved that. On the way there, we gambled. On the way back, we gambled. And we always stayed in touch. I lived in D.C. for 3 years, and while I was there, I spent a lot of time with Jerry and Lisa. And I just had a lot of great memories along the way. I remember picking up, before they had kids, Jerry and Lisa, I think Jerry had a business trip in Australia, and they were flying all the way back from Australia, and they had just gone to Ayers Rock, which I've never been to, but is, I guess, out back or something. And they had been on a plane for like 16 or 17 hours and hadn't showered, and I picked them up from the airport, and I gave them a tour all around LA. They wanted to see like everything in LA. And I just remember they kept on yelling, Uluru, Uluru, which is apparently Australian or Aborigine for Ayers Rock. I mean, what else do I remember about Jerry? You talked about the great food at his wedding. The food that I think I remember most, and James will correct me if I'm wrong, is that I think freshman year we decided very early on that we weren't, except for actually Jerry and I weren't going to distinguish ourselves as great lawyers. I mean, we were in a class of future presidents, Supreme Court justices, cabinet members, and so Jerry had this idea about, he really wanted to create like a homey atmosphere. So we got into cooking these home-cooked meals, and Jerry's favorite meal was his mom's tuna casserole, which was, as I recall, a mix of tuna, Campbell's mushroom soup, macaroni and cheese. I never had it, and my mother deprived me apparently. And of course, the ultimate topping, the French's fried onion toppings. And I remember that well. And what else can I say about Jerry? He was just an incredibly optimistic, upbeat guy. He had an amazing sense of humor. He was quick with the joke. We stayed in touch. I loved talking politics with him. But I think what stands out, like most to me, was really just how he handled his sickness. I mean, I remember hearing, this was I think in August of 2007, that he had stage 4 lung cancer, and what an horrendous break. I mean, I think Jerry probably smoked a couple cigarettes in his life, and he ended up with lung cancer. And I remember, I couldn't help but go online and see that the mortality table suggested that he had 6-9 months to live, and he went through obviously a really difficult round of chemotherapy, but then he rallied and he just lived his life to the fullest. And I mean, what he did to me was so remarkable. And he, rather than pitting his situation, he threw himself into trying to find cures for lung cancer. He became the head of this longevity walk in DC, which they still have every year, and he raised millions of dollars. He went on the board of his synagogue and became the president of the synagogue. He took his kids to Israel, traveled the world. He continued to go to concerts, and he really lived life to the fullest. And we all have our setbacks and our difficult times, and I have to say that oftentimes when I have those moments, I really think it, like how Jerry dealt with the adversity, and he always had such a tremendous sense of humor. He was, I mean, if anyone who read his blogs on the care pages, he was so just so honest and sensitive and insightful about what he was going through, but he always did it with a sense of humor and this positive can-do attitude. I mean, I can still remember every time he'd go for a checkup at Hopkins, he would go out to, he would usually go with his sister and his brother Norman, and after they got a good report, or even if it wasn't a great report, they'd always go out to some diner in Fells Point, Maryland, there, the Johns Hopkins Hospital, and have a martini. And he just was able to deal with a really difficult situation with such strength and courage, and he was an inspiration, and I miss him very much.
You're getting movie tired.
we really knew Jerry through the Yale Daily News. That was where we spent most of our time together. And what I remember is him being just extremely present, that when you talked with him, you knew he was focusing on you, what your issues were, what he cared about you, essentially. He was a great colleague. We were a spirited group of people on our board, and I would say he was a voice of reason, at the very least. He was considerate. We both shared a passion for Springsteen, and one day he brought me a tape of Bruce's concerts with Steel Mill. If anyone is a Bruce Springsteen fan, that's his band before he became Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. So I was very touched and moved by that. And the other thing I remember to this day is that he would sing the Roadrunner theme song. Does anyone remember this?
Yeah.
Or am I like, what?
I know the theme song.
But he would sing the theme
You're gonna
song.
sing it,
Am I like
No, I'll spare you.
misremembering this? Or was it
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just remember him
sing,
doing that a
sing.
lot. That was a great sense of humor. But I really loved working with Jerry and spending time with him.
I guess I'll follow up on what Pete says. Just looking around, the 20 people here, 6 of us are from the editorial side, 2 more from the publishing, and it's not getting into. I think that was the seminal, intense experience of my entire Yale career is working on with all of you and with him on the Daily News. And I think we were such a family in both the positive and negative ways that losing any member of that family is losing a member of my Yale family in a way that, other than my roommates, I don't think I'd feel it as much. And you know, what Pete says is true. I mean, I was down in the dungeon in the dark room, something they don't even have anymore. And I remember him or Dan come down 11:30 on a Thursday. We have a hole on the sports page. I need a photo of this. I think there's a photo from September. Could you look through the negatives and try to find that? Really, it'll only take you 45 minutes, Mike. It's really not gonna. And you know, the way he did it, asking something that was like gonna make my night like an hour longer, it was never no, because that's just the kind of guy he was. So again, I thought when, you know, I didn't know him the way a lot of you knew him. It was just this very intense experience. But when I heard about it on Facebook, and it was something, I guess, that just hit deeply for just a couple of days in a way that, you know, I really felt important to be here today.
It is so hard to believe that any of us were ever this young.
We weren't. He's photoshopped the picture.
Maybe aren't still.
These are so unbelievable, these photos, David. Really.
Oh my God, fantastic.
So, as Matt said, I didn't know Jerry well in college. I knew who he was from afar, but I got to know him when Matt and he and I lived together in law school, and he became one of my closest friends. Sorry. The one thing I wanted to say. Can we come back to it? Sorry.
I'll jump in for a moment. Speaking from the business side, I think me and Darcy would say that we didn't work one-on-one with Jerry, but definitely he brought a sense of just plain wonderfulness to the news. A sense of happiness, a sense of genuineness, a sense of, now again, I didn't work with him on the editorial side, so I didn't have, but a sense of everything's going to be all right kind of thing. So I echo what Mike said. It felt like a loss to our family, all of us, no matter how well or not as well we knew him. It was a loss of someone who embodied just a great humanitarian spirit.
Thank you for saving me there. So there, I have lots of memories of Jerry, but the one thing I wanted to sort of pull out here is that obviously as we all age, more and more of us have our own experiences with cancer. And about a year after Jerry was diagnosed with his last or penultimate cancer in 2007, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. And I had nothing like the horrific experience that Jerry had. I'm fine. but Jerry was so helpful to me in those moments, where he, in the midst of what all he was doing, he could help me, and he could be someone to talk to and talk about this stuff in a way that there was no one else in my life who could. And that meant the world to me.
So, as David mentioned, so we were Teleflix. We actually were Teleflix International. and we had our own jingle, by the way. I just want you, what? We didn't have a trademark, but we did have our own song that we would always sing whenever we were delivering the VCR. Do you remember it? It was from the MasterCard. Teleflix International, so worldly, so welcome. It really was just a MasterCard song with Teleflix.
I understand why you got into a loss.
but I actually want to share this. Like, Jerry was amazing. But I want to actually share a memory that in some ways is indicative about Jerry, but also kind of about us, and that in some ways, part of what was remarkable about it is that how normal it seemed to me, which was when Jerry told me that he had Hodgkin's, didn't know what the prognosis was, he didn't know how long he was going to live. He was quite upfront about the fact that he was facing, in college, he was facing mortality. And one of the questions was, well, what is he going to do with the rest of his life when the rest of his life might only be 6 or 9 or 12 months? And the answer for him that seemed obvious was, well, I'm going to keep on going to college because I love it here and I'm having this amazing experience. And that's the thing I'm going to want to do because this is my community. This is I can't imagine anything else I'd rather be doing with the last days of my life. That's something none of us has ever had to confront when we were that age. And just thinking back on it, it's a testament to him and frankly to the community that we had, and frankly to something about his spirit that it just seemed obvious that he was just going to continue on as a student, knowing that any day might be his last.
And he had it in high school too. I mean, he was already with her.
I remember this one time we decided we were going to do something crazy, and we got in some car that he had found, and we drove on some hill. But no, I actually don't have a lot of specific memories, but I sort of have I have a very New Jersey sort of affiliation with Jerry, and also just a general warmth that he was like available, smiling, warm, and part of that sort of comfort zone of school where you were sort of on your own for the first time, and yet it was super exciting because all of a sudden there were interesting people to talk to, but also people who felt very warm and welcoming to this new family. And so I think it is also a reflection on Jerry that everybody has come together and clearly still feeling that warmth and bonds that became even stronger over time. So anyway, aside from the car thing, the rest was valid perspective.
There's something very foundational about Jerry for us. When he died, I hadn't talked to him that much since law school. I also went to law school. I saw him at not this past reunion, the last law school reunion, and it was, I had been following on his blog, about what was happening with his cancer, and here he was at the reunion, and it was like he had had cancer. I mean, he had, but it was the same life-affirming humanity, love that was Jerry. And when he passed away, it was was like destabilizing, really, because even though he wasn't such a part of my life, he was. My wife kept saying, "Paul, you're obsessed with this." I was. But for good reason. He was special.
I went to a party when Jerry was in law school, and he told me this funny thing that I've been repeating ever since, which is that he said to me, "You can take any good, exciting, cool thing, and if you add the word law, you can make it incredibly dull." And then he demonstrated. He was like, entertainment, law. Sports, law. Intellectual property, law. Which I thought was so funny. I've been telling people this story ever since.
I always considered Jerry a good friend, but my interactions with him were maybe 100 of everybody here, so take my comments for what you will. The one thing I've really struggled with since graduation is trying to figure out what's really a coincidence and what might not be a coincidence, what might have something beyond it, and it really was underscored when I heard that Jerry had passed. When we were in college, Stuart and I were in South Africa, I heard that my girlfriend, who had also had Hodgkin's in high school, had a relapse. So I was coming back from this summer experience and encountering that problem and not knowing, what was going to happen to her. And one of the first people I saw when I came back to campus that fall was Jerry, and I had known what he had gone through. And I could not repeat what he had said to me, but it was exactly the right thing. He was just exactly the right person I had to see at that moment with those issues that were going on in my life. Fast forward to 2009, my mother-in-law had just gotten a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis, followed 8 months later by my father's stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis. So it was a pretty crap year, and I think it was near the end of it that I went to see Gary Finerman get sworn in as a new judge in the U.S. District Court, and showed up for that to, wave the yellow flag, and who should be there but Jerry Sorkin. Exactly the right person I needed to see at the right time, and we hadn't talked in ages, and we had caught up, and I heard that he'd just gone through his stage 4, and again, probably just a coincidence, but it was exactly the right person at the right time, saying exactly the right things that I needed to hear, and it was something special.
I didn't have the kind of relationship that some of the Teleflex people did. But Jerry was in my crew because we had a pretty tight-knit crew. But one thing, looking at the photographs that I recall is a remarkable magnetic smile. It just was this embracing life, happy to be alive smile that if you measure life in years, as opposed, if you measure life in terms of how you live it and how you embrace it, I think Gary had many more years than actual time years. But I just remember this wonderful spirit. It's also really good person who wished the best for everyone.
Last going once.
I'll say like Eric, Gary best love, but he's part of the college experience of this summer, particularly the freshman year, which that year is a big part of our mind, and he had actually told a freshman year memory last, but and like a number of you I also follow both on Facebook and also his blog, and I would say the positivity, but also the intelligence, with which he approached it from a medical point of view, and just a great medical customer, which I think prolonged his life and gave him the 4 years with his family. But to go back to the freshman year memory, was coming in one day into the first floor where he was, and seeing a bunch of people, most prominently Jerry, high, quite high. I don't know how this fits in with the I don't know, but and as I reinterpreted, that memory, Lynn was there, as I recall. I won't comment on her.
Jerry would never smoke with me. I didn't want to say that because we were PG, but he refused.
Well, maybe he was just acting.
He didn't inhale that. I also inhale, but he also refused. He was like completely annoying about it.
Well, maybe he was just acting high, but you were all there. There was a smell and but in retrospect, I was a little nonplussed having by that scene. But now, many years later, and knowing what he had to go through, I hope he had a really good time.
I'll just say one quick thing. I mean, as Sherry said, we were on the other side of the fence, so I didn't know Jerry as well as most of you did. But I kind of feel like all together we form this fabric, right? And when one thread gets pulled out, we all lose a little bit of that kind of the way that we all come together, and there's a little bit less color in our lives. And Jerry was a very important thread in this particular family. He's clearly going to be missed.
I'm just thinking we're in Brantford, and Jerry was in Sullivan, but I think if there was one sort of honorary Brantfordite among us, it was Jerry.
Wasn't it you?
Oh, they always treat the transfer students as
why did you leave TD then? No.
Exactly. It's the converts who are always the most committed.
Can I say thank you? Again, I assume it was you, right? Whoever's idea this was, thank you. I guess it's a great idea.
Thank you, David. And I feel like, Deborah, you were part of this.
Whoever's idea was, it's a great idea.
You ordered that. Did you organize the gift?
We go there.
I organized the Yale Daily News gift.
Thank you to all of you. To everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Great seeing everyone.
Miss you, Jerry.
So we can turn the